This is Aidan Lerman
Yes,
from
I'm
SHCTV. Today I'm very lucky to be joined over Zoom by Josh Padley. Josh, thank you very much for coming on, mate. How have you been?
not bad, mate. Yeah, good, mate. Thank you very much. What about yourself?
I've been good, mate. I've been good. So yeah, obviously, we'll just get into it. So yeah, you've got this massive fight on the Wembley show, against Mark Chamberlain. How did this fight sort of come about?
It was a very, it was a very last minute sort of offer that we had. So there were no sort of pre pre build up or anything to this. No inkling whatsoever that we were going to get the fight. It was literally the day before the press conference. We got the phone call seeing if he was interested. Negotiations started that night and finished that night. With okay, mate, you've got the fight. You need to be in Wembley. You need to be in London for the press conference tomorrow. So there was no. It was very last minute.
How sort of was that? Obviously 24 hours before, not really knowing what was going on, and then 24 hours later, being on the stage with names like Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois, Eddie Hearn, names like that.
Crazy, mate. Yeah, there were a few times when I were sat up on that press conference. I found myself sort of looking round and thinking, this is a bit surreal of a moment that I'm up here with, like you say, some of the British best boxers about, some of the biggest names. And I kept having to like snap myself back into it and listen to what obviously the presenter was saying because I was daydreaming a little bit, few times up there. But like I say, if I want to put myself in that situation, and I believe that I am worthy of that, and I need to get used to it. So it was a good first experience for a press conference, put it that way.
Definitely. So yeah, we'll get back to the fight in a minute. But what I wanted to sort of ask is how did you first sort of get into boxing? Where did that love for the sport sort of come from?
Um, it all the very first my very first experience with boxing was there were a couple of lads, one of my old gym mates called Ryan Stevenson, who was a former pro boxer. Um, he was on his way home from training one night and he had some old gloves spare in his moped. We were 14 at the time. My friends, we were like out playing as you do, 14-year-olds on the field messing about, big group of us. And he pulled up with a couple of pair. Him and his mate pulled up with a couple of pair of boxing gloves, and we're like, "Here, lads, get them on, get them on." And between obviously the group of friends that my group of friends that I grew up with, we sort of put these boxing gloves on and started levering into each other, just having a mess about. And you were like, "Oh, mate, you should come because you've it looks like you've got a bit of natural ability. Come up to the gym." And ever since then, really, I've been in the gym non-stop, really.
So then obviously, getting into the amateurs, how did you sort of find your amateur career?
Um, the first few years of being an amateur, well, more than that really. I had my first amateur fight at 15, and up till I did the I won the under 20 development nationals, and I was still sort of just doing it as a hobby then. I never really thought that I could go on to be a professional athlete or anything. I just did it because I liked the sport and having a fight basically. And I won them under 20 developments. And the year after was like, right, let's go into the elites and see how we do in the open class. And I got to the quarter of the elites, um, only having, like I say, 24 fights, I think. And my elite, I got to the quarters and I was fighting somebody who had 110 fights and lost on a split decision. So like, if you get your head down, you could actually do something with this. And like I say, from that point there, that's when I sort of I've trained non-stop quite a hard since that. So
Definitely. And then obviously, turning over, you became Central Area champion in your 10th fight, I'm right in saying, against Jimmy First. How
yeah.
have you sort of found your first 14 fights so far and the transition? Do you feel you're still maybe more suited to the pros anyway?
Definitely, mate. Yeah, amateur. The pace of amateur is just non-stop. Like I say, it's a completely different ball game. I much prefer the pros where you take your time a little bit and you sink your shots in and you set your traps and yeah, the fight goes on. You can work on things. You know what I mean? Set certain stuff up. So I much prefer it. And like I say, the first couple fights, just first few, still getting into it. Getting that experience at pro, getting them journeymen in because there's a lot more little tricks that obviously in amateurs that you don't get away with, whereas pros you can get away with a little bit more. So they all serve a purpose, them journeymen, and keep the prospects coming up.
Definitely. So, and obviously onto this Mark Chamberlain fight. How have you sort of found training for this fight? Were you already training before you got the call? And yeah, how have you sort of found that training?
I was already I train pretty much all the time, seeing as though I've not had that big break yet. Most of the time, when you get when somebody like me who's fought predominantly on small hall shows gets a big show opportunity, it's normally like late notice, to be fair. So obviously I stay in shape all the time, just in case one does come up short notice that I can take it. So it was a bit unusual to have a full week, 12 weeks notice on this fight. But yeah, our training before, like I say, I've got a new team now. I'm training with Steffi Ball and Jason Cunningham over at Coningsborough at Steffi Ball's gym. So I'd gone there 2 or 3 weeks prior to getting the call, and like I say, we were already training then. So we've just sort of stepped it up. We've had 4 week pre-camp, and then this last week was my first full week off work. I've took full 8 weeks off work for this one to give it everything.
Definitely. How do you think how have you sort of found that so far? Having that time off of work to focus on professional boxing fully.
It's going well so far, mate. Yeah. This is what I've wanted since turning pro. Like I say, that I've only ever had 2 weeks. I think I had 2 weeks off work to fight Jimmy first, and then I've had a week off when I went over to Malta to fight for a little international title over there. So other than that, I've only ever really had a couple of days, or like say 2 weeks for Jimmy first. That's the most I've ever took off work for boxing. So it's I'm living the dream, as you say, at the minute, and I'm fully focused on the fact that if I win this fight, then going forward, this will be for now. So that's the job at hand.
Definitely. So if you were to get the win, on the 28th of September, what do you think that would sort of mean to you? Where do you think that would rank in, sort of big moments in your life? And yeah, where do you think you want to go from there as well?
As far as boxing, this would be the biggest achievement that I've ever even come close to having. Like I say, the amateurs getting into them quarters were a big one. Then you have your, like I say, beating Jimmy for the central area. That were a big achievement for me. But like I say, in boxing, the next fight is always the next biggest one, because if you lose that fight at any distance, and you do a couple of steps backwards. So like I say, this is a massive opportunity for me, this one, and which will help me go full-time athlete after, like I say, for the future. So that is the mission.
Definitely. So obviously, you'll be taking on Mark Chamberlain, WBC silver champion, 16-0. How much do you sort of know Mark? Obviously, he's been one of the, front runners of this whole Riyadh season boxing. But apart from that, how much do you sort of know Mark?
I'd obviously heard of Mark beforehand. Seen his name obviously in the rankings, the top 10 in Britain. And he gets guys out there pretty early. Which is like I say, which is what is being expected to do every time. I honestly believe that I will be the best opposition that he has faced. Looking at his records and stuff like that, and I'm going in there to get the win, mate. 100%. That is my mission.
Definitely. So then, last one, have you got anything you want to promote, say for sponsors, socials, anything like that?
All my sponsors will be listed on my socials. Obviously, Josh Padley, Instagram. Them guys there have helped me out massively this camp. Obviously, they've all got together and sort of covered the cost of me being off work, which is going to entitle that I can be the best version of myself come September 21st and get the win. That's the plan. That is the plan, mate. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, hopefully see you down in London for the fight. And yeah, best of luck.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate.